"Sir, I can make your mother walk again," said the beggar boy. The millionaire turned and froze. The sun was hot in the sky as Robert Wilson walked down the busy street. Robert was a rich man who owned many big companies. He wore an expensive black suit and shiny shoes that cost more than what most people earned in a month. At 50 years old, Robert had everything money could buy: a big house, fancy cars, and important friends. But he also had a deep sadness in his heart. Robert was walking fast, looking at his expensive watch every few seconds. He was late for a meeting with some business people. As he hurried, he bumped into people without saying sorry. His mind was not on the street, but on his mother, Martha Wilson. Once a happy and active woman, Martha now sat in a wheelchair all day. 3 years ago, she fell down the stairs in her home and hurt her back badly. The best doctors in the country had tried to help her. Robert had spent millions of dollars on treatments, medicines, and special doctors from other countries. Nothing worked. Each doctor said the same thing: Martha would never walk again. This morning, Robert had visited his mother before work. Seeing her in pain made his heart heavy. "Mr. Wilson, your coffee," his driver said, handing him a cup as they stood near his parked car. Robert took the coffee without even looking at the man. He was too busy thinking about the sadness in his mother's eyes when he left her house. As Robert walked toward his tall office building, he nearly stepped on someone sitting on the ground. "Watch where you're going," he shouted, spilling some coffee on his sleeve. He was about to walk away when he heard a young voice. "I'm sorry, sir." Robert looked down and saw a small boy sitting on a dirty blanket on the sidewalk. The boy was thin with messy brown hair and clothes that were old and torn. He looked about 10 years old. Next to him was a small box with handmade bracelets and a sign made from cardboard that said, "Please help." Robert normally walked past people like this boy without looking at them. He gave money to big charities, but never to people on the street. Something about this boy made him stop today. Maybe it was the boy's eyes. They were bright blue and looked too old for such a young face. "It's fine," Robert said, about to walk away when the boy spoke again. "Sir, I know why you're sad." Robert stopped and turned back. "What did you say?" The boy looked up at him with those strange eyes. "You're sad because of your mother. She can't walk anymore." Robert felt his body go cold. How could this street boy know about his mother? He had never seen this child before. No one knew he had visited his mother this morning. "Sir, I can make your mother walk again," the boy said in a clear voice that sounded sure and strong. Robert turned and froze. His coffee cup fell from his hand and hit the ground. The hot liquid splashed on his expensive shoes, but he didn't feel it. His heart was beating fast, and he couldn't breathe right. "What did you just say?" Robert asked in a whisper. The boy stood up slowly. Even standing, he was small, barely reaching Robert's chest. He looked straight into Robert's eyes without fear. "Your mother. I can help her walk again." The busy street seemed to go quiet around them. People walked by, but Robert couldn't hear them anymore. All he could see was this strange boy with the confident eyes claiming he could do what million-dollar doctors could not. "That's impossible," Robert said, finding his voice. "Who are you? How do you know about my mother?" The boy smiled. It was a smile that seemed too wise for someone so young. "My name is Alex. And sometimes, sir, the impossible just needs someone to believe in it." Robert Wilson stood on the busy street, staring at the small boy named Alex. People walked around them, but Robert did not notice. His mind was racing with questions. How did this boy know about his mother? Was this some kind of trick? "You're lying," Robert said in a hard voice. "How do you know about my mother?" Alex did not look scared. "I'm not lying, sir. I can help her. I have helped others before." Robert wanted to walk away. This was crazy. A street boy claiming he could fix what the best doctors in the world could not. But something in the boy's eyes made him stay. They were kind eyes, honest eyes. "Who are you really?" Robert asked. "Did someone send you?" Alex shook his head. No one sent me. I learned special ways to help people from my grandfather. He was a healer in our village before we came to the city. Robert looked at his watch. His meeting was starting in 5 minutes. He should leave now. This was a waste of time. Yet he could not move. What if there was even a small chance this boy could help? "Look, I don't believe you," Robert said. "But I'm going to give you a chance to explain. Come to my office." Robert was shocked at his own words. Why was he inviting a dirty street boy to his expensive office? But the thought of his mother's sad face that morning pushed him to take this strange chance. Alex carefully put his few things in a small bag and stood up. He followed Robert to the tall glass building nearby. The security guards looked surprised when Robert walked in with the small boy in torn clothes. "Mr. Wilson, sir," one guard asked with wide eyes. "He's with me," Robert said firmly. In the elevator, people moved away from Alex. His clothes were dirty, and he smelled like he had not had a bath in days. Robert noticed but did not care right now. The elevator went up to the top floor where Robert's office was. Sarah, Robert's assistant, nearly dropped her coffee when she saw them walk in. "Mr. Wilson, your meeting started 5 minutes ago. Everyone is waiting and—" She stopped talking when she saw Alex. "Cancel my meeting," Robert said, "and get this boy some food and water." Sarah looked confused but nodded. Robert took Alex into his private office and closed the door. The room was big with a glass desk and pictures of Robert, with famous people on the walls. Through the big windows, they could see the whole city. "Sit," Robert said, pointing to a chair. Alex sat down, looking small in the big leather chair. His feet did not even touch the floor. "Now talk," Robert demanded. "Tell me exactly how you think you can help my mother walk again." Alex looked at Robert calmly. "First, I need to know more about her. When did she lose her ability to walk? What have the doctors done?" Robert was surprised by these smart questions. He sat down across from the boy and began to talk. He told Alex about the accident 3 years ago, how his mother fell down the stairs and hurt her spine, how he had taken her to doctors in America, Europe, and Asia, how they all said the damage was too bad and she would never walk again. As he talked, Robert felt strange. Why was he telling all this to a child? But there was something about Alex that made Robert trust him, even though his brain told him this was foolish. When Sarah brought in a sandwich and water for Alex, the boy thanked her politely. He ate slowly while listening to Robert. When Robert finished his story, Alex put down the sandwich. "I can help her," he said simply. "But you need to trust me. And she needs to believe it's possible." Robert laughed without humor. "That's it. Just believe." Alex shook his head. "No, there is more. I know special exercises that can wake up sleeping paths in the body, and I know plants that can help with pain and healing. But first, the mind must believe healing is possible." Robert stared at the boy. Was this a waste of time? Probably. But what if it wasn't? "Fine," Robert finally said. "You can meet my mother. But if I think you're lying or trying to trick her, you'll be sorry." Alex nodded, not looking scared at all. "When can we go?" Robert looked at his watch. It was only 10 a.m. now, he decided. "We'll go now." Robert's driver was surprised when his boss came out of the building with a small boy in torn clothes. He opened the car door without asking questions. That was one reason Robert paid him so well. "Take us to my mother's house," Robert told the driver as they got into the black car. The seats were soft leather, and Alex looked around with big eyes. Robert wondered if the boy had ever been in such a nice car before. "Is this your first time in a car like this?" Robert asked. Alex shook his head. "No, I was in a nice car once. When I was little, before my parents died." Robert felt uncomfortable. He did not like talking about sad things. "How old are you?" he asked to change the subject. 12, Alex answered. He seemed older with his serious eyes and the way he talked. They drove for 30 minutes to the rich part of the city where big houses sat behind tall gates. The driver stopped in front of a beautiful white house with a garden full of flowers. A nurse in a white uniform opened the door when Robert rang the bell. "Mr. Wilson, we weren't expecting you back today," she said, looking confused when she saw Alex. "This is Alex," Robert said. "He's here to see my mother." The nurse, whose name was Nancy, looked unsure but let them in. The house was big and clean with shiny floors and expensive furniture. Pictures of Robert and his mother hung on the walls. In most of them, Martha Wilson was standing, smiling, looking happy and strong. Nancy led them to a sunny room at the back of the house. Martha Wilson sat in a wheelchair by the window, looking out at the garden. Her hair was white, and her hands lay still in her lap. When she heard them come in, she turned her head and smiled at her son. "Robert, what a nice surprise. Twice in one day." Then she saw Alex standing behind Robert. Her eyes showed surprise but also kindness. Unlike many rich people, Martha had always been kind to everyone, no matter if they were rich or poor. "And who is this young man?" she asked. Before Robert could speak, Alex stepped forward and held out his hand to Martha. "My name is Alex, Mrs. Wilson. It's very nice to meet you." Martha shook his hand, looking pleased at his good manners. "It's nice to meet you too, Alex. Are you a friend of my son?" Robert did not know what to say. How could he explain that he had brought a street boy home because the boy claimed he could make her walk again? It sounded crazy now that they were here. "Alex is," Robert started, but Alex spoke up. "I'm someone who wants to help you, Mrs. Wilson, if you'll let me." Martha looked at the small boy with interest. "Help me? How could you help me, dear?" Robert stepped in quickly. "Mother, Alex thinks he knows some exercises that might help with your pain. I thought it wouldn't hurt to let him show you." He didn't mention the part about making her walk again. It seemed too cruel to give her false hope. Martha smiled. "That's very kind. My pain has been worse lately. The doctor gave me new pills, but they make me sleepy all day." Alex moved closer to Martha's wheelchair. "Can you tell me about your accident, Mrs. Wilson, and where you feel pain the most?" Robert was surprised at how grown-up Alex sounded. Martha seemed surprised too, but she began to talk. She told Alex about falling down the stairs, about the surgeries, about the years of trying different treatments. As she talked, Alex listened carefully, sometimes asking questions that seemed very smart for a boy his age. After Martha finished talking, Alex said, "I think I can help you. Not just with the pain, but maybe with walking again too." Robert opened his mouth to stop this. He didn't want his mother to get false hopes. But before he could speak, he saw something in his mother's eyes that stopped him. A small light that had not been there in 3 years. A tiny spark of hope. Martha reached out and took Alex's hand. "You know, young man, all the doctors have told me I will never walk again. They say it's impossible." Alex nodded. Many things seem impossible until someone believes they are possible. Martha smiled, a real smile that made her face look younger. "My husband used to say something like that. Before he died, he always told me nothing is impossible if you believe." Robert watched this strange scene with mixed feelings. Part of him wanted to end this now before his mother got hurt by false hopes. But another part saw how alive she looked suddenly, talking to this strange boy who spoke like someone much older than 12. "So," Martha said, squeezing Alex's hand, "tell me about these exercises that might help me." Alex asked for a piece of paper and a pen. Nancy, the nurse, brought them, still looking unsure about this strange boy. Alex thanked her and began to draw on the paper. He made a picture that looked like a human body with lines going through it. "These are energy paths in your body," Alex explained to Martha. "When you had your accident, some of these paths got blocked. The doctors fix the bones and muscles, but they don't know how to fix these paths." Robert wanted to laugh. This sounded like nonsense, but his mother was watching Alex with interest. "My grandfather taught me how to find these blocked paths and open them again," Alex continued. We will do small movements every day to wake up these sleeping paths. It will take time, and you must believe it can work." Martha nodded. "I'm willing to try. What should I do first?" Alex put the paper down and moved closer to Martha's wheelchair. "First, we need to help your body remember what it feels like to move. Can you close your eyes, Mrs. Wilson?" Martha closed her eyes. Alex stood beside her chair and gently placed his small hand on her shoulder. "Now think about your legs. Don't try to move them. Just remember how they used to feel when you walked in your garden or danced with your husband." Robert was surprised. How did Alex know his father used to love dancing with his mother? Martha's face softened as she remembered. "We used to dance every Saturday night in the living room," she said quietly. "Good," Alex said. "Keep that feeling. Now I'm going to touch your right foot. I want you to imagine the energy flowing from your shoulder, down your body, and into your foot." Alex moved to Martha's feet and gently touched her right foot through her slipper. Robert watched, feeling both silly and hopeful at the same time. "Can you feel the connection, Mrs. Wilson?" Alex asked. Martha was quiet for a moment. Then she gasped. "I felt something, like a warm feeling going down my leg." Robert stepped forward. Was this a trick? But the look of surprise and joy on his mother's face seemed real. For the next 30 minutes, Alex led Martha through simple exercises. Some were just in her mind, imagining movement. Others involved Alex gently moving her legs and feet in certain ways while Martha concentrated. Robert watched the whole time. He noticed his mother looked different. Her face had more color. Her eyes looked brighter. Even if this was all just imagination, it seemed to be making her happier. When they finished, Alex gave Martha the paper with his drawing. "Look at this picture every morning and night," he told her. "And do these small movements we practiced. The nurse can help you." He showed Nancy how to help Martha with the simple movements. The nurse looked less doubtful now after seeing how happy Martha seemed. "How often will you come back?" Martha asked Alex, holding his hand. Alex looked at Robert. It was clear he was asking permission. Robert felt torn. This all seemed like make-believe to him. But his mother looked happier than she had in years. Just having hope seemed to give her new energy. "He can come back tomorrow," Robert said finally. Martha smiled widely. "Wonderful. And you'll stay for lunch tomorrow." "Alex, I want to hear more about your grandfather and his healing ways." As they were getting ready to leave, Martha called Robert over to her chair while Alex was talking to Nancy about the exercises. "Where did you find this remarkable boy?" she asked quietly. Robert didn't want to tell her he found Alex sitting on the street. "He found me, actually," he said, which was true in a way. Martha nodded. "There's something special about him. I haven't felt this good in years." "Mother, please don't get your hopes too high," Robert warned. "This might just be making you feel better without actually fixing anything." Martha patted his hand. "Hope itself is healing, Robert. You've forgotten that, running your big companies and counting your money." Her words stung because they held truth. Robert had stopped hoping his mother would get better. He had accepted what the doctors said and focused on making her comfortable instead. As they drove back to the city, Robert looked at Alex. The boy was quiet, looking out the window at the passing buildings. "My mother seems to like you," Robert said. Alex smiled. "She is a good person with a strong spirit. That will help her heal." "You really believe she can walk again?" Robert asked. Alex turned to look at him with those strangely old eyes in his young face. "Yes, but the question is, do you believe it, Mr. Wilson?" Robert didn't answer. He didn't know what to believe anymore. When they returned to the city, Robert wasn't sure what to do with Alex. He couldn't just drop him back on the street, but he also didn't know where the boy lived. "Where do you stay at night?" Robert asked as the car stopped near his office building. Alex looked down at his hands. "There's a shelter 3 blocks from here. They let me stay sometimes when there's room." Robert felt uncomfortable. He had never thought much about where street children slept at night. And when there's no room, then I find a safe place somewhere else, Alex said simply. Robert made a quick decision. There's a small guest room in my apartment. You can stay there while you're helping my mother. Alex looked surprised. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Robert's apartment was on the top floor of a fancy building with a doorman and gold elevators. It was big and modern with glass windows that showed the whole city, but it didn't feel like a home. There were no personal pictures, no comfortable chairs, just expensive furniture that looked like it came from a magazine. The guest room is this way, Robert said, leading Alex down a hall. The room was small but nice, with a clean bed and its own bathroom. You should take a shower. I'll find some clean clothes for you. Robert called his assistant Sarah and asked her to buy some clothes for a 12-year-old boy and bring them over. While Alex showered, Robert sat in his living room, wondering if he had lost his mind. Why had he brought a street boy to his home? What if Alex stole something? What if this was all a big trick? But then he remembered the look on his mother's face today. She had seemed more alive than she had in years. Sarah arrived with bags of clothes. These should fit him, she said, still looking confused about the whole situation. Thank you. And Sarah, I need you to clear my schedule for tomorrow morning. I'm taking the boy back to see my mother. After Sarah left, Alex came out of the guest room wrapped in a big towel. He looked different with his face clean. His brown hair was actually lighter than it had seemed, and without the dirt, his face showed a sprinkling of freckles. There are clean clothes on the bed, Robert told him. After you get dressed, we'll have dinner. They ate dinner mostly in silence. Robert ordered food from his favorite restaurant, and Alex ate like he hadn't had a good meal in days, which, Robert realized, he probably hadn't. How long have you been on the streets? Robert asked finally. Alex finished chewing before he answered. Almost a year. After my grandfather died, there was no one to take care of me. What about your parents? They died in a car crash when I was 7. My grandfather raised me after that. Robert felt a pang of sympathy. And your grandfather taught you about healing? Alex nodded. He was known as a healer in our village. People would come from far away for his help. He started teaching me when I was very small. And you really believe you can help my mother walk again? Robert asked, still doubtful. Yes, Alex said simply. But it won't happen quickly. It will take time, and she will need to work hard. The next morning, they went back to Martha's house. She was waiting for them in the sunny room, looking excited. Nancy told them that Martha had been doing the exercises Alex showed her and had slept better than usual. For the next 2 hours, Alex worked with Martha. He showed her new exercises, some that she could do sitting in her wheelchair, others that needed Alex or Nancy to help move her legs. He also brought out a small bag of dried leaves. What's that? Robert asked suspiciously. Tea from special herbs, Alex explained. It helps reduce pain and open the energy paths. Robert wanted to call this nonsense, but he held his tongue. Who was he to judge if it made his mother feel better? After the session, Martha insisted they stay for lunch. As they ate, she asked Alex many questions about his grandfather and the village where he grew up. Alex answered everything honestly, not hiding that he was an orphan who had been living on the streets. You'll stay with us now, Martha decided, looking at Robert as if daring him to disagree. We have plenty of room here. Robert started to object, but stopped when he saw the determined look on his mother's face. It was a look he hadn't seen since before her accident. It was good to see it again. Yes, he can stay here if he wants, Robert agreed. Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Alex moved into a room at Martha's house. Every day, he worked with her on the exercises. He made her the special tea and taught Nancy how to prepare it too. Robert came by every evening after work to check on them. At first, he saw no real change in his mother's condition. She seemed happier and said she had less pain, but she still couldn't move her legs on her own. Then, about 3 weeks after they first met Alex, something happened that made Robert question everything he believed. He arrived at his mother's house one evening to find her and Alex in the garden. Martha was in her wheelchair, and Alex was kneeling in front of her, holding her hands. As Robert watched, his mother's right foot moved slightly. Just a small twitch, but it moved on its own. Robert froze in the doorway, not believing his eyes. "Mother," he said in shock. Martha looked up with tears of joy in her eyes. "Did you see that, Robert? Did you see my foot move?" Robert could not believe what he had seen. His mother's foot had moved by itself. It was just a small movement, but the doctors had said even this was impossible. "I saw it," Robert said in a voice filled with shock. He walked quickly to his mother's side. "How did this happen?" Martha was crying happy tears. "We've been working so hard, Robert. Every day, 3 times a day, doing the exercises Alex showed me. And today, I felt something different, like a connection coming back." Robert looked at Alex, who was still kneeling by Martha's wheelchair. The boy was smiling but did not look surprised. "You expected this?" Robert asked him. Alex nodded. "The energy paths are starting to open. It's just the beginning." For the first time, Robert began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this boy could actually help his mother walk again. It seemed impossible, but he had seen her foot move with his own eyes. That night, Robert stayed late at his mother's house. After she went to bed, he asked Alex to explain more about these energy paths and exercises. "My grandfather said our bodies know how to heal themselves," Alex told him. "But sometimes they forget. The exercises help the body remember." "But the doctor said the damage to her spine was permanent," Robert argued. "How can exercises fix that?" Alex thought for a moment. "Think of it like a road with a fallen tree blocking it. The road is still there under the tree. The exercises help find a way around the tree or slowly move it aside." It still sounded strange to Robert, but he couldn't deny the results he had seen. Before he left that night, he did something he hadn't done in years. He prayed that this miracle would continue. The next day, Robert canceled all his meetings. He wanted to be at his mother's house to see her work with Alex. Nancy, the nurse, was also excited, telling Robert that Martha had slept through the night without pain medicine for the first time in 3 years. During that day's session, Martha was able to move her right foot several times. It was just small movements, but each one made her smile grow bigger. She also said she felt a tingling in her left foot, like it was waking up. For the next 2 weeks, Robert spent more time at his mother's house than at his office. His assistant Sarah handled many meetings for him, and some of his business partners were annoyed. But Robert didn't care. Something more important was happening. Martha continued to make small progress each day. First her right foot, then her left. Then small movements in her right leg. Each new movement was a victory they celebrated together. One evening, Dr. Phillips came to visit. He was Martha's main doctor who had told them 3 years ago that she would never walk again. Robert had called him to see the progress. Dr. Phillips watched as Martha moved her feet and even lifted her right leg slightly off the wheelchair. His face showed his disbelief. "This is unexpected," he said carefully. "I've never seen recovery like this from an injury as severe as Mrs. Wilson's." "But you see it's real?" Robert asked, needing the doctor to confirm what he was seeing. Dr. Phillips nodded slowly. "Yes, there is definitely movement. I would like to do some new tests to understand what's happening." A week later, they went to the hospital for the tests. Dr. Phillips took new pictures of Martha's spine and tested the feeling in her legs. When he came back with the results, he looked confused. "There appears to be some healing in areas we thought were permanently damaged," he said. "I can't explain it medically." "I can explain it," Martha said, smiling at Alex, who sat next to her. "Sometimes healing comes from believing it's possible." Dr. Phillips didn't look convinced. "I wouldn't get too excited yet, Mrs. Wilson. These small movements are encouraging, but walking again would still be." He paused, looking for the right word. "A miracle," Martha suggested. The doctor nodded. Yes, something like that. As they drove home from the hospital, Robert noticed Alex was quiet. Are you okay? He asked the boy. Alex looked up with serious eyes. The doctor doesn't believe. His doubt could affect your mother. Robert understood then that belief was a big part of this healing process, and he realized that somewhere along the way, he had started to believe too. 2 months had passed since the day Robert met Alex on the street. In that time, his life had changed in ways he never expected. He spent less time at work and more time with his mother. He watched her grow stronger each day as she worked with Alex. Martha could now move both legs. She could lift them off the wheelchair and hold them up for several seconds. She had feeling all the way to her toes. The pain that had been her constant companion for 3 years was almost gone. Robert's business partners were not happy with his absence. One morning, James Burton, his main partner, came to his office looking angry. Robert, we need to talk, James said, sitting down without being invited. The Dixon deal is falling apart because you're never here. What's going on with you? Robert tried to explain about his mother's improvement, but James didn't seem to care. Look, I'm glad your mother is feeling better, but we have a business to run. You need to get your priorities straight. Those words hit Robert hard. For years, his priority had been his business. Making money, making deals, being successful. His mother's care had been handled by doctors and nurses he paid. He visited her, of course, but he didn't really participate in her life. Now, seeing her fight to walk again, with the help of a boy from the streets, Robert realized his priorities had been wrong all along. You're right, James. I do need to get my priorities straight, Robert said calmly. And that's what I'm doing. My mother is more important than any deal. James left angry, threatening to call a meeting of all partners to discuss Robert's role in the company. Robert found he didn't care as much as he would have just 2 months ago. That afternoon, when Robert arrived at his mother's house, he found her sitting in the garden with Alex. The boy was showing her a new exercise where she had to try to stand, holding onto the arms of her wheelchair. Robert, watch this, Martha called when she saw her son. Holding the wheelchair arms tightly, Martha pushed with her arms and legs. Slowly, shakily, she rose a few inches off the seat. Her legs trembled with the effort, but they were supporting some of her weight. After a few seconds, she sat back down, her face shining with triumph. Did you see? I almost stood up, she said, breathless from the effort but smiling widely. Robert felt tears in his eyes. I saw, Mother. That's amazing. That night, Robert took Alex for a walk in the garden after Martha went to bed. The boy had changed in the past 2 months too. With regular meals and clean clothes, he looked healthier. He smiled more, but his eyes still held that strange old wisdom. She's going to walk again, isn't she? Robert asked. Alex nodded. Yes. Maybe not long distances at first, but she will walk. Why did you help us? Robert asked the question that had been on his mind for weeks. That day when we met, you could have asked me for money. But instead, you offered to help my mother. Why? Alex was quiet for a moment. My grandfather taught me that our gifts are not for ourselves. They are to help others. But why us? Why my mother? Alex looked up at the stars. I saw her picture in a newspaper months ago. It was a story about you and your companies. You were standing next to her wheelchair. I saw sadness in both your eyes. I felt I should help if I could. Robert found this hard to believe. You saw a picture and decided to help. And then you just happened to meet me on the street. Alex smiled. Some would call it chance. My grandfather would call it fate. Before Robert could ask more questions, Nancy came running into the garden. Mr. Wilson, come quickly. Your mother is trying to get out of bed by herself. They rushed inside and up to Martha's bedroom. She was sitting on the edge of her bed, her feet touching the floor. Mother, what are you doing? Robert asked, worried she would fall. Martha looked determined. I want to try to stand by myself. Help me, Alex. Alex moved to her side. "Are you sure, Mrs. Wilson? We gon' have to rush." "I'm sure," she said firmly. "I feel strong tonight." Robert wanted to stop this. It seemed too soon, too dangerous. But the look on his mother's face made him hold his tongue. It was the same look she had when he was a boy, and she was teaching him to ride a bike. Determined, brave, unstoppable. Alex stood in front of Martha, holding both her hands. "We'll go slow, just like we practiced. Feel the energy flowing through your legs." Robert and Nancy watched nervously as Martha took a deep breath. Then, gripping Alex's hands tightly, she began to push herself up from the bed. The room was quiet except for Martha's heavy breathing as she pushed herself up from the bed. Her legs shook with effort. Her hands gripped Alex's tightly. Slowly, inch by inch, she rose until she was standing. "I'm standing," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Robert, I'm standing." Robert couldn't speak. His throat felt tight with emotion. His mother was standing on her own legs, something the doctors said would never happen again. Nancy, the nurse, had her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. This was the woman she had lifted in and out of bed for 3 years, the woman who couldn't even feel her legs not long ago. Martha stood for almost a minute before her legs began to shake too much. Alex helped her sit back on the bed. She was breathing hard but smiling through her tears. "Tomorrow," she said between breaths. "Tomorrow I'm going to try to take a step." That night, Robert couldn't sleep. He kept seeing his mother standing, something he had thought impossible. He had spent millions on doctors who said she would never walk again. Yet a boy from the streets, with nothing but knowledge passed down from his grandfather, had done what medical science could not. The next morning, Robert canceled all his meetings again. James would be angry, but Robert didn't care. Nothing was more important than being there when his mother tried to take her first step. When he arrived at the house, he found Martha already in the garden with Alex. She was in her wheelchair, but she was doing exercises to strengthen her legs. "Good morning, son," she called cheerfully. "You're just in time. We're almost ready." Robert saw that Nancy had placed 2 walking bars in the garden, like the ones used in physical therapy. They were about 10 feet long, giving Martha something to hold onto as she tried to walk. Alex helped Martha from her wheelchair to the start of the walking bars. She gripped them tightly, one hand on each bar. Her face showed determination. "Remember what we practiced," Alex said quietly. "Small steps. Feel the ground under your feet. If you get tired, we stop." Martha nodded. Robert stood at the other end of the bars, his heart beating fast. This was the moment they had been working toward for 2 months. Martha took a deep breath and lifted her right foot. It hovered in the air for a second, then moved forward about 6 inches and touched the ground again. She had taken her first step. "Yes," Robert couldn't help shouting. "You did it, Mother." Martha smiled but kept her focus. Slowly, she lifted her left foot and moved it forward. Another step. Her legs were shaking with effort, but she was doing it. She was walking. It took her almost 10 minutes to walk the 10 feet of the bars. By the end, she was sweating and her arms ached from supporting much of her weight. But she had done it. When she reached Robert, he hugged her gently, careful not to knock her off balance. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. For the next few weeks, Martha practiced walking a little each day. At first, she could only take a few steps before getting tired. But each day, she grew stronger. From the walking bars, she moved to using a walker. Her progress was slow but steady. Dr. Phillips came to the house again to see her progress. He watched in amazement as Martha walked across the room with her walker. "I've been a doctor for 30 years, he said, shaking his head. "And I've never seen anything like this. It goes against everything in the medical books." "Sometimes the medical books don't know everything," Martha said, smiling at Alex, who stood quietly nearby. Dr. Phillips wanted to write a paper about Martha's recovery. He called it a medical miracle, but Martha refused to be studied. "This is my miracle," she said firmly. Not medicines. One evening, about 4 months after meeting Alex, Martha did something that made Robert's heart stop. She was in the living room, using her walker to cross from one chair to another, something she did many times a day now for practice. Suddenly, she let go of the walker and took 2 steps without any support before quickly grabbing the chair. "Did you see that?" she asked, laughing at the shocked look on Robert's face. "I walked by myself." From that day on, Martha practiced walking without support for a few steps at a time. It was hard, and sometimes she would get frustrated when her legs wouldn't cooperate, but she never gave up. Alex continued to work with her every day, showing her new exercises as she got stronger. But Robert noticed that the boy was teaching her to do more on her own now. He was preparing her for a time when he wouldn't be there. One day, Robert found Alex sitting alone in the garden. The boy looked thoughtful, almost sad. "Is everything okay?" Robert asked, sitting beside him. Alex looked up with his old, wise eyes. "Your mother can walk now. Not far, and not without rest, but she can walk. My work here is almost done." Alex nodded slowly. "Yes, it's time for me to move on." Robert felt a mix of emotions. In just 4 months, this boy had become important to both him and his mother. Alex had changed their lives completely. "But where will you go?" Robert asked. "Back to the streets." Alex shook his head. "No, there are others who need help. My grandfather always said our gifts must keep moving. Others like my mother. People who can't walk. Some like that. Others with different problems. The kind doctors can't always fix." Robert thought for a moment. "You could stay with us. I could pay you to help other people. Set up some kind of healing center." Alex smiled but shook his head again. "That's not how it works. My grandfather said our gift must be given freely, or it loses its power." Robert didn't understand this way of thinking. In his world, everything had a price. Everything could be bought and sold. But Alex lived by different rules. "When will you leave?" Robert asked, his voice quiet. "Soon. Your mother is almost ready to walk on her own now." That evening, Robert told his mother what Alex had said. He expected her to be upset, but she surprised him by nodding calmly. "I knew he wouldn't stay forever," she said. "People like Alex are just passing through our lives. They come when we need them and leave when their work is done." "But he's just a boy," Robert argued. "Where will he go? How will he live?" Martha took her son's hand. "Alex may look like a boy, but his soul is much older. I think he'll be fine. And we owe him so much." Over the next week, Martha pushed herself harder than ever in her exercises. By the end of the week, she could walk across a room without any support. She still moved slowly and couldn't go far without resting, but she was walking, something that had seemed impossible just months ago. On Sunday morning, Alex came to breakfast wearing the same clothes he had been wearing when Robert first met him on the street. His few belongings were in a small bag. "You're leaving today," Martha said. It wasn't a question. Alex nodded. "Yes. You don't need me anymore." Martha stood up from her chair without using her walker. Slowly, she walked to Alex and hugged him tightly. "You gave me back my life," she said, tears in her eyes. "How can we ever thank you?" Alex hugged her back. "Seeing you walk is all the thanks I need." Robert felt a lump in his throat. He had spent his life believing that money could solve any problem. But his millions couldn't help his mother walk again. This boy, who owned nothing, had given them something priceless. "Let me drive you wherever you need to go," Robert offered. "Just to the bus station," Alex said. "I can find my way from there." Before they left, Martha gave Alex a small box. "Just a few things for your journey," she said. In the car, Robert tried one more time to convince Alex to stay. "You could have a good life with us. Go to school, have a real home." Alex looked out the window at the passing city. "I have a different path. Mr. Wilson, my grandfather showed it to me before he died." At the bus station, Robert felt like he was saying goodbye to a wise old friend, not a 12-year-old boy. "Will we ever see you again?" he asked. Alex smiled. "Perhaps, if your paths need crossing with mine again." Robert handed Alex an envelope. "I know you won't take payment, but please take this. Just enough for food and safe places to stay." Alex hesitated, then took the envelope. "Thank you." As Alex turned to walk into the station, Robert called after him. "Wait. There's something I've wanted to ask you. That first day, on the street, how did you know about my mother? How did you know she couldn't walk?" Alex looked back with those old, wise eyes. "Some things we know here," he pointed to his head. "And some things we know here." He touched his heart. "My grandfather taught me to listen to both." With that, Alex walked into the station and disappeared from view. 6 months later, Martha Wilson attended a charity event on Robert's arm. She walked slowly but without help. People who knew her story watched in amazement. The woman who was told she would never walk again was standing among them. The event was for a new foundation Robert had created. It provided healing therapies to people who couldn't afford them, treatments that mainstream medicine sometimes overlooked. The foundation was named simply Alex's Gift. "Do you think he knows what we've done in his name?" Martha asked as they stood looking at the foundation's new building. Robert smiled. "Somehow, I think he does."